Welcome, everyone. Good boy, Tucker. This is learning at its most fun.
All right, welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Catherine Beltran. I'm a trainer here at Redtail Technology, and today we're actually going to come with the third part of our workflow series. So the last few sessions, we've gone over the whiteboarding process, which is just really taking that rough draft. What exactly do I even want in my workflow? That's that first part. The second session, if you hopped on with us, was really the building part. You've taken all of that thought process you've put in and quite literally built it into Redtail. Now, today, we're actually going to take all of that hard work you've already done and actually use it. So today, we're actually going to cover really specific questions that we're going to answer to help you show how workflows actually work within the Redtail CRM. So let's go ahead. Let's actually take a look at really what we're going to be covering today. So I kind of listed it out into separate questions, and then I kind of created little subsections of, things that are commonly asked. So the very, very first thing we're going to actually even talk about is, how do I even launch a workflow? So I've built it, it's sitting in there. How do I actually even use it? So we're going to start off with that very simple question. I'll show you all the different ways you can do that. And then we're going to take it a little step further with, okay, I've launched it. I've gone off the page. How do I find it again? So we're going to go over all of, again, the separate locations of every little spot you can find, workflows as a whole, tasks on an individual level. And then we're going to ask kind of this very common question of, well, can I make changes to an active workflow? So again, we're going to cover those first, and then we're going to actually work through the actual process of the 3 workflows that we built out and cover some of those other kind of follow-up questions we have with, well, what happens when they get completed? What about step notes? What are step notes? And then there's also little nuances and in terms of notifications that we'll cover, as well as we'll wrap up with reporting. So quite a bit of questions that we're going to answer in this next about an hour here. I'll definitely leave room for questions, but this is what we're going to be covering. So let's go ahead, let's hop into the CRM and start tackling all of those different questions. So the first thing, before you even actually launch a workflow, just kind of double check yourself. So again, the last session, we actually built out those templates. Reminder, we went up to our name, manager, account, and then we came into workflow templates. Now, really what I would just recommend, just before you really go into the next step here, is make sure you have those as active workflows. If you already did that, perfect, you're ready to roll. But if you're looking at yours and it's saying something like this one under construction, you want to make sure you switch it to active so that way we can actually use it. So ours are good to roll. We've got the 3 here. How do I launch a workflow? So at any spot in the CRM, you actually will always have this little plus sign at the top. That's your quick add button. If you come up to that little quick add button, you're going to see workflows at the bottom. And if you click on that, this is actually option number 1 when it comes to launching a workflow. Now, technically, you can create a workflow without a template. I don't see that all that often. I don't necessarily encourage it either because workflows really are that process. It's making sure that we're doing everything correctly at that right time. So if I wanted to go ahead and launch a workflow with the template that I built out previously, I'll get all of those active templates that I've built out. And here's the 3 that we actually are focusing in on. Now, before I actually even click that, you're going to see I'll have an option for workflow name, and I'll have an option to actually attach a contact name. Now, this is technically optional. Now, for the workflows that we're going to talk about today, we are going to attach them to contacts because that would make sense for these ones. However, if you have a process that's maybe revolving around like a seminar event, that's more internal. That's not necessarily affecting just one contact. It's actually the process behind the event. You could always leave that contact name blank. Now, if you do use that quick add button and you're outside of a contact record, then yes, you would actually have to physically type in the contact's name to link them up here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you that way first. So again, that quick add, I'm going to go ahead and actually start with my prospecting workflow because I actually had someone this morning that I entered into my database. So I'm going to go ahead, I might actually refresh my page because I know mine's been a little bit weird today. Here we go. So again, anywhere in the database, I could even go to the today page, doesn't matter where I'm at, come up to that quick add, come on down to workflows. Once you're here, pick that template you want to go with. It'll pre-populate anything that you've built out in that template. So we had our username established, we had that category established, and we have that target date. Now for my prospecting, I want to reach out to this now. I don't want to wait on this, a week and a half go by. No. I want this today. So again, that's why I have that target date of today. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and link up a contact here. There's my good old Theodore. So I've got my contact, I've got my ownership, I've got my category, I've got my target, I've got everything in here. Now it really is as simple as clicking that green create new workflow button. So I'm going to let the CRM do its thing. It's going to think about it, but it'll immediately, once it's going to bring us to a workflow, look like a page like here. So again, this is going to look a little different from the template itself. Big change that's going to happen. You're actually going to see dates in here. So where you were building out the template to go, a couple days after, a couple days before, this is where it starts to come in here. So again, with this one, we pick the target date of today. We want to reach out to this prospect as soon as I physically can. That's why we have that target date here. Here's that due date for that, again, that first step. And then you're going to see a couple after should we pursue it. So again, this is an active workflow. It's attached to our contact. We've got assignments that we need to get done. This is how it'll look. Now, before I really work through this, I actually want to show you where all of these options to view these workflows and really work out of them can be found, because there's actually quite a few. So option number one, if I actually come back to my today page, and I look here, if there is a task that is due today, you're actually going to see that right here under workflow tasks to do today. Shocker, right? No one saw that one coming. So right here, we've got those two workflow tasks for good old Theodore. I've got the task due here right here. But the next thing I always like to kind of clarify is, well, what if I need to find something that's set in the future? I don't want to know just today's workflow task. I want to know everything that I personally have to get done. That's a very common question. And honestly, I ask myself that every single morning I log into the CRM. What do I need to do today? If you come up here, kind of heading towards the top right, almost like you're going to your name, but stop before you get there, you're going to see it kind of looks like a Uno reverse card spot. If you click on that, the number will vary, but this will truly answer what you are responsible for. So it's your laundry list of every single workflow task that is assigned to you. If it's you individually, you as that role, or if you're part of that team. Now, I'm a big fan of this page. I actually quite literally will open this as a new tab. I'll have this open throughout the day. I'll refresh it just to make sure that if anyone's launched something new, I'll capture that. But the big reason I like this page is because I can sort by the bold headers at the top, and I actually will choose to sort by the task due date. I want to make sure that I get everything I'm behind on before I go and work on something that isn't due for maybe another 2 months. So this again is my go-to spot. This does not have to be yours, but if you do have that question of what is everything I need to worry about, that's a really good spot. Now, another location is actually based on your preference, and I do quite literally mean preference. If you come to the calendar on the left-hand navigation, we'll let this load here again, but you can actually choose to have your workflow tasks show up on your calendar. So I don't actually even have to scroll. If you're looking at mine right here, you'll see a couple items here in black. Well, actually more than a couple. All of these items in this black color is workflow tasks that are, again, assigned. Now, if you're looking at your calendar, you're literally following along in yours and you're going, Heather, I don't see them. I launched it and I don't see anything. And I know it's assigned to me. I know it's out there. Just come up to actions. You may have it hidden. So if yours is saying actually show workflow tasks, click that. It'll actually then actually show up on your calendar. If this is not up for you, you're sitting here going, I don't need anything else on my calendar. You actually can choose to hide that. Now, actions is kind of a temporary fix. So if you're sitting there going, I permanently want to see my workflow tasks show up on my calendar, or the reverse, you're sitting there going, I do not want to see them on my calendar, you can come up to your name and actually go to preferences. So if you are, again, wanting either one of those scenarios, come up to your name, come to preferences, and about, I'd say almost a third of the way down, you'll see calendar management, and you'll actually have an option to default to show workflow tasks. So again, that's just to avoid having to click it every single time you go into the calendar page or having to turn it off every single time on the calendar page. So again, that is a literal choice, but those are, again, the main ones that you'll see just out there when it comes to those workflow tasks. So again, you've got the calendar, you've got the today page, kind of two spots, literally the ones to do today, as well as the spot that shows every workflow task that you have. Now, what if we're not looking so much on an individual level? I just want to know every workflow that's out there. You could actually just come to workflows on the left-hand side. And this is going to kind of give you a big picture. This is going to show you every single active workflow, whether it's assigned to you or not. This is actually going to show every single one that's open or active, however you want to kind of look at that here. So I usually will see this one come into play more so for like staff meetings, just to see, hey, are we super behind on something? What are we doing? Why are we behind on this? That's kind of that conversational starter. I'll show you another alternative, again, kind of as that wrap up, but this is, again, the big picture. Now, if I just flat out go to Theodore's page, I actually will also see the workflow there. So that's why I said there are multiple spots you can find them. It's all a matter of really what works best for you. But if you are on a contact record, right over here, there's that one active workflow. If I click on that here, there's my workflow, there's my target, it has everything in it. Now, technically from this page as well, you could launch a workflow. So I did say quick add was one method. This page also offers a second method. You can add the workflow from this page. And technically, if you are looking at the workflows on the left, there was the same button, just again on the big picture view. So again, it's all a matter of where it's easiest for you to click, where you're comfortable with it. But again, this is going to show up on the contact record for you to actually view how many are open for them. Now, if I actually just come back to Theodore's main page, though, if I come on down here and I just scroll, keep going, it's actually going to show you every single open workflow task for those workflows. So this one isn't going to be, again, on an individual level. I can see every and any task, no matter who it's assigned to. I can see that from this page and I can actually complete it from this page. So that's the other thing I want to clarify is that you are going to find workflow tasks and workflows generally in several spots. You can also complete them from pretty much every single spot. The only exception is really the calendar. You'd have to click into it first. So again, just to recap, we've shown how to launch that. We can do it from that quick add. We can click on the active workflow, or if you click on more, you can actually come to the contacts workflows individual page, add a workflow from here, or again, come to workflows on the left and hit new workflow. So those are all the ways you can launch it. Workflows on the left is going to show you, again, every workflow that's open. The today page has two different spots to show you all of the workflow tasks that you have to get done. Same with the calendar, and then same with the contact record as well. So again, several different spots, several different scenarios that, again, could work for you. I will honestly just stress, find what works best for you, find what starts to feel like second nature. The more you use it, the more effective it'll become. Now let's go ahead, let's click into this. And while that's loading, let's just hop back to ours, make sure we've kind of, again, crossed off our list here. So we've covered how to launch it. We've covered how to find them. The what task do I need to complete is, again, that my workflow tasks. The next one here is, can I make changes to an active workflow? A common misconception that I feel like all of us, myself again included, can be that we build out the template and we feel like we're done with it. That's it. We do that process, we follow it, and we're all golden. That's not how the real world works, right? There's always that one complicated scenario or that one, just little difficult client. We all have someone in mind usually where you have to do a little bit more. You can always add more tasks to an active workflow. So should I have this process? I reach out to Theodore and he goes, oh, hey, I actually don't have an email. Well, I don't have to do that task then. I can always just delete that. Again, just keep it in mind that you may delete tasks, you can add more tasks, you can add more steps. You're not stuck with the template itself. You can always edit it. A very common one could be well, what if someone's out sick? Maybe they're out sick for a couple weeks, or we know they're going to be out due to surgery, or hey, they're going on vacation. They're out for a couple weeks that way. You can always edit who's actually going to be doing it. So I am logged in as Tucker, but if I know, hey, I'm not going to be here that time period, I just really want someone else to do this because I'm leaving for the rest of the day, I can always come in here, pick the other person I want to actually do it, and it'll reassign to that person for that task. So again, you can choose to edit a template, or I should say edit an active workflow. This will not affect the actual template itself. So this is really just editing the one workflow we have here for Theodore. Now, actually working through this process, rather simple. This is probably the easier part of the live application. To actually complete a task, you're going to come and hit the complete button over here on the far right-hand side. So if I hit complete here, it'll then change my status. This will show you, okay, what are we done with? What do we still have open? But once I actually hit the last completion here, if I have outcomes, we will get a pop-up that looks like this. If you do not have outcomes, this will actually just immediately bring you to step 2 here. It will not give you an option to kind of deviate from the path. So again, once you complete really the last task in that step, once I hit complete here, that's when I'll get that pop up to say, where are you going? What happened in this scenario? Now, just as again, as a recap, this particular workflow, it's that call cadence. This could have several ways this could happen. I could reach out, immediately get a hold of him, and he says, yeah, I'm interested. Well, if he's interested, I'm not going to follow up in a couple of days, go, hey, are you still interested? Have you changed your mind? No, you do want to definitely make sure that, again, you pick the scenario that makes sense. So if I come in here and I go, okay, well, I did successfully get a hold of him, I'm going to pick interested in meeting. I can even say, spoke with Teddy, was super excited to hear from me. Ooh, I could spell today, and looks forward to working with me. Yeah, I'm keeping mine very simple here, but really what this step notes here, almost think of these as like breadcrumbs along the way. It's adding that tidbit of information. Think of this as a good way if someone's rescheduling a lot and you just get like 1,500 different reasons why. This could be a good spot to store that. Or if you do have it where, hey, maybe there's some changes to accounts and it happens to deal with that. Again, anything that you want to add in here as that details to help maybe another person involved in this process, or even yourself, if you're like me, it's hard to remember everything, then it's always, of course, a good spot to add those notes. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to complete this. I want to save in those notes. I do want to clarify one more thing when it comes to those step notes. They live strictly within the workflow. Again, another kind of common misconception is that we'll think that if we save the note in there, it's going to our notes itself. It's not. Again, this is where I say it's that breadcrumb. It's only going to add those additional values within the workflow itself. If you find yourself going, well, it affects the contact overall, I'd save that as a regular note. If it's more so, hey, it'll affect this process, then I would add it again as that step note. Now, again, I added in the concept of we reached him successfully today. It's the positive scenario. And I went ahead and skipping over all of these other steps and bringing me immediately to the interested in meeting process. Now, again, this is where we start to wash, rinse, repeat. If I went ahead and scheduled that meeting, I can hit complete. If I went ahead and updated my category, I can again hit complete. It's really just completing our tasks. Nothing complicated there. Now, again, if I have an outcome, I'll get that process. Hey, interested, marked as finished. You technically do not have to add step notes, and I'll show you on this step. I'm not going to, so you can see that. But again, it's always there to help add any description, any kind of details you'd like. Now, once I complete that step here, any step that we skipped over is actually going to show skipped by outcome. The other thing I want to point out is that any actual step that we completed on will have completed on and the day that it actually happens. I always like to clarify that one because we again have those lovely what if scenarios. What if I complete it early? Am I stuck? Do I have to wait until the day of? No, please complete it early. It'll have the date that it completes on. What if it completes late? Does the workflow break? No, it again will just put the date that you actually completed on. So as soon as you can, again, do your tasks, by all means, do them. It'll reflect the date that you've actually completed it. Now, again, anything I skipped will have that skip by outcomes. But if we look up here at the top, we now have 100% complete. We are now seeing that this one's all finished. Where do they go? Do they just disappear into the deep dark web? Is there a black hole that just sucks up all the completed workflows? No, of course not. We're all about saving what we've done in here. So when a workflow is actually completed, if I come back to his main contact record, there's a latest note right there. It's actually going to show as a completed note. So again, it has that datetime user stamp. I can still click into this though. I can easily see, okay, well, what exactly happened? I'm not losing any of that detail. I'm just having it as that note. It'll stay there. I can look back at it 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year and a half from now, whatever the process is, it'll have that. Now, over on the left, if I come back to contact or Theodore's main contact page, if I come to more on the left-hand side and scroll down a bit, again, you'll have workflows under their contact record. You can also see completed right here. So again, multiple locations, all a matter of finding what's best for you. But one other thing I wanted to show from the note section specifically is that if you're looking at here, you might wonder, were there step notes involved? Did someone add those little details along the way? You can, again, always click into that workflow alternative. If you click on actions, you can actually, let me zoom out of here, get a little bit bigger. There we go for a second. If I come to actions, step notes is that first option here. So if I have action step notes, there it is. There's that, again, that little step note I had in there, spoke with Teddy, super jazzed about being here, has that datetime and user stamp. So again, it acts similar to a note with the datetime user stamp, but it lives within the workflow itself. So again, just to recap with that one, workflows do not disappear, step notes do not disappear. They will be available under the notes as well as the workflow completion page itself. So again, that's really workflow one. We've gone through how to launch it, how to find them, how do I complete them, and what happens to it. We're going to again do that same process. I'm a big fan of if you do it multiple times, it starts to make sense. So again, that's one workflow. Well, if Teddy told me, hey, he's interested, he's no longer a prospect, he's now a client, I can update that status, I can update his category, but then that sparks that, hey, we have more processes we have to work through. What about onboard? What about those important fields we want to fill in? There is another workflow we actually set up, again, part of part 2 in this series. Again, I can come up to that quick add, come to workflow. You're going to see one little difference with this actual pop-up this time. So I've got my create a new workflow. Again, I'm going to pick my template and do the required information this time. But right here, if I look at the contact name and I hover over it, I've got this big old X. That's because I'm on Theodore's contact page, Teddy's good old page here. It will pre-fill the contact's name if you start from the contact's record and then hit the quick add button. So again, it'll just save you a few little extra typing if you know who it's attaching to, or you know who you need to make it active for. Just pull up the contact record first, then hit the quick add button and pick your template from there. So again, based upon what we've established with session number 2, our owner was pre-filled, our category is pre-filled, our target date's pre-filled. Again, I'm now just going to go ahead and hit create new workflow. So again, from here, it'll immediately bring open the workflow that you have built. We'll have all of those different tasks. And again, we will now have these showing up in those several different locations. Now, of course, this one, we actually give ourselves a little buffer here. If I don't have them due today, and I show you the today page, you're not going to see, again, those tasks right down here, because again, it doesn't have a target date today. It has it for 3/24. So again, if I happen to have a few moments to spare and I did get his date of birth, I don't want to wait till 3/24 to update that. I can, again, come up to my little workflow task up here, click on that right here. I can sort it again by task due date. I can sort it by workflow. I could even sort it by link contacts right here. So again, I can always come in here, see if I can find it really fast. That's always option again, number 1. Option 2 here, I know it's going to be faster. I know it's going to apply again for a specific contact. I can easily come on up to my recently viewed, pull back open his contact record. I can open that workflow or scroll down to the bottom again. I can just complete that from right here. So again, I just wanted to show you that, whoops, looks like mine's being a little funky. I just wanted to show you that you can have different locations. I could just as easily come to workflows on the left, find the active workflow here that I have for Teddy, scroll until I find him. I could always sort this way. Here's that information, click it. Again, it's just another route you can do that. Ultimately, the main takeaway that you really want to capture here is that once it's active, it's the no-brainer part. You're doing the things you know you need to do and hitting complete when you know you have it. That's all these really do. Again, every single workflow that you have, if it's attached to that contact, it'll immediately save us a note on that contact record. If I find myself going, oh, you know what, I want to make sure that I add their category as well. Again, I can add more tasks. I'm not stuck with what's been built here. I added a new one right here, click edit task. I want to say, hey, verify status. Oh, it might help if I could type here. Status and category has been updated. I just want that reminder in here. Ooh, struggle. There we go. Updated. I can assign again who it's for. If I'm not quite sure who I want to give that to yet, I can update that task, maybe think about it later and always reassign. Again, it's up to you. But just know that you are not stuck with that template. I get it. There are those clients who just will not fit that mold. You can edit those tasks. You can add more tasks. You can add more steps. So again, this was just another scenario that we had with the workflow. This one's a little bit easier than that prospecting. It's one step, couple different tasks to just say, hey, make sure we have them. But again, still simple in terms of the process itself. Now let's bring up another one that isn't necessarily as straightforward as, yes, this is there, complete. Yes, that's there. Okay, complete. A very common scenario of client reviews or annual reviews or client touch points. We might have different lingo, but the concept's the same. It's checking in with our clients, making sure we're doing our fiduciary duties, making sure we're really checking in with them. That is yet another workflow process that you can do. Now, let's go ahead. Let's work through that scenario. Again, I'm going to pull open a contact here. We'll open Jane this time. You know what? Let me go ahead. I'm going to go to the workflows page here just because, again, I want to show you an alternative route. I can add a workflow. I can create a new workflow here. Again, I'll get that same pop-up. I'll pick my template. This time, we're going to do a process revolving around the client review process. Now, with this one, really what I want us to focus in on is that target date concept. Now, one common, again, situation we'll run into with workflows is we're not sure what the target date is. For something like this one, a client review or client meeting, client touch point, again, whatever you might call it, that target date is actually the meeting date itself. So if I called up Jane and she goes, oh yeah, I can come in on April 6th. April 6th is the day of the meeting. April 6th is our target date. That's it. So again, don't overthink it. I know it's always easier said than done, but again, the target date is actually the date of that meeting when it comes to that client review process. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to actually, and you know what, before I do that, I want to show something else here. We did have our owner prefill, we had our category prefill. You could change these though. So if I'm looking at this category and I go, you know, I'd rather save this under client review notes, I can edit this. Again, this will not affect the template that I've built out. It'll just affect this one workflow for Jane. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to create a workflow here. Again, I know it sounds repetitive. I'm a little broken record here. But again, there's that workflow. It has that target date. I'm going to click into it. And you're going to see everything we have here. So this one, again, I'm going to scroll down just a smidge here. This is a little bit more complicated than the last one we looked at. There's multiple dates involved. There's multiple tasks in here. But again, really at its core, it's just the process you've been working on in a way to really just kind of check and balance, I should say. It's to double check to make sure we're doing it. Now, I can always change this target date. I can always link up more contacts technically. If I wanted to have Derek in on this one as well, I could put, okay, let's add her husband in here, link the contact, put him in here. Great, he's there now as well. So again, you can always add more, you can remove it. Just know you're never stuck with that template. You can always adapt it. Now, the other thing I want to point out, again, I can complete this, I can complete it, I can do them individual. Well, what if I actually happen to do all of these? I actually went ahead and I reassigned this one to myself here. I'm going to go ahead and put my name, update task. And if I did all of these, I can complete these individually, or because again, I knocked these all out, I was an all-star type of day, I can hit that complete step button. That'll go ahead and actually just complete all of those tasks that are under that particular step. Now, again, remember, steps tell you where you're at in the process, tasks are telling you what you're doing. So, again, if I did all of these, I'm done with that step. So, again, if I have outcomes, remember, outcomes are technically optional. This again will tell you where we're going from here. The other thing before I move forward, what if you have one of those cases where you never thought it would happen, and of course it happened? You can always add more outcomes on the fly as well. I do not expect you to think of every situation ever to exist. I guarantee you, if I asked you that question 2, 3 years ago, it would be a vastly different answer. So just make sure you can always, again, add more outcomes or again, add those situations you never thought would happen. So again, I'm going to complete my step though. I want to show you what happens if we actually work through a process and we hit a bump. So if I went ahead, I did everything here, everything's moving according to plan. Everything is, I'm going to even put that, everything is going according to plan. Complete my step. It'll go ahead, think about it for a second. It'll again show when it's completed on far before that 4 or 5 date. There's my step notes. Now here's where I'm going to come in with the what if. What if they call in that day, Jane goes, hey, there's an emergency. Can we reschedule? Well, of course, life again loves to throw us curveballs. And of course you can reschedule. If that happens, your target date will then change because again, you're not meeting with them on April 6th anymore. You might be meeting with them on April, let's just say the 12th. Now, again, I just clicked on that target date right up here, and I'll show you when I do that here. It'll bring back up to a screen we're already very familiar with. And I'm just going to change that target date to the 12th, update that workflow, and you're going to actually see this ripple effect. Now, again, what if? What if I now need to reconfirm those appointments, redo some of these reports because they now have extra days that need to be included in it? How do I go backwards? That is, again, where outcomes come into play. Now, again, in session 2, we already built that as part of a template. We thought about the scenario of rescheduling. So if I want to go back to step 1, as weird as it might be for you, hit complete step, you're going to get, again, those alternative routes. I definitely did not have the meeting, so I'm not going to the follow-up process. We didn't cancel, so we're not going to mark it as finished. We are rescheduling. I'll come in here and I'll say Jane called and said there was an emergency, rescheduled from the 6th to the 12th. Again, the details are up to you on how much you want to put in. I complete that step. You're going to see though in a second here that it's going to reopen step 1 here. So again, if you do find yourself saying, I need to redo them, this did not go according to plan, that is actually how you'll do that. Sometimes we'll hear like the, oops, I accidentally completed a step too soon. Is there a way for me to go backwards? Outcomes are your ability to go backwards. So again, if you never thought that would happen, you can always add the outcome on the fly. It'll ask you where you're trying to go. That's pretty much it. Again, don't overcomplicate it. So this is a scenario where, again, I'm going to work forward. The other thing I always like to stress, because it's common, and trust me, I've done it myself. We can all laugh about it. If you have a outcome that'll take you backwards, just make sure you have an outcome to go forwards again. Sometimes we'll see ourselves kind of create our own traffic jam. You don't want to do that. So make sure that when you are actually finished with it, again, I should say part 2 of completion, you then have, again, the ability to go back to the appropriate step it needs to. So if I complete that here, again, we've got step notes. This time, if everything went according to plan, I then can complete my step and then go to the follow-up at that point in time, hit complete, and again, just work my way through the normal process in that scenario. So if you do happen to complete all 3 of the tasks in that scenario and you need to go backwards, again, outcomes. If you accidentally hit complete over here and you didn't do it, just hit uncomplete. It'll just uncomplete that task. But again, sometimes we'll get the question of like, can you uncomplete a step? Short answer, no. Long answer, technically with outcomes, you can go backwards and reopen it. So yes and no. I know it's a little complicated. It's a gray area. but just kind of take away that outcomes are always going to be your best friend when it comes to deviating from a normal 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, however many steps you have process. So like I said, I know this one's a little bit more complicated. If you live in a perfect world scenario where everyone always shows up, it won't be. It's really, again, going 1, 2, 3. This is really just showing the scenario of, oh, nope, we had an emergency, reschedule it, move forward from there. Again, it's not going to happen every time you have that meeting, but it could happen enough times where you'd want to have those outcomes again in that case. Now, if I come back over here, because again, I want to just recap, we showed how to launch a workflow. My general rule of thumb is always that quick add, just because it's always there for me. How do I find my open active workflows? Well, you've got the calendar, you've got the today page, you've got workflows on the left, you've got the contact record. There's multiple places you can actually see them. Can I make changes to an active workflow? Yes, of course you can. You can edit, you can delete, you can add more, you can add outcomes, you can add steps. You have so much that you can actually pivot. Again, if you have that client or that prospect that is just not fitting that normal mold. How do you complete them? Really just as a matter of hitting complete. Shocker, I know. But once you hit that complete, it saves as a note on the contact record. It's always going to be there for you to see that. Any step notes that you have will still be visible from within the workflow. Again, it's just once you actually complete that after the fact. Now, that pretty much is the main concepts. There's two more things I still want to go over though. How do I receive notifications and how do I report off of them? So if we're working through it, and again, we're 6 months down the road, how do I find them? Besides going into the notes sections, is there a way to find it more in bulk? Or how do I find everything that's open for someone else? I don't want to know just my open workflow tasks. I want to know someone else, because again, maybe they're going out for a couple weeks due to an illness, surgery, work, vacation, anything like that. There are multiple ways. So let's tackle that notification first, though. So when it comes to notifications, if you come up to your name and then come down to preferences, we're going to wait for this to load. But once we're here, if you scroll just a smidge down, about, I'd say a little bit over halfway down, you're going to see notification options. The first three, ignore for the moment. Those actually deal with activities. We want to focus in on these 6 items right here. What these are saying is if you are an attendee, AKA, if I pull open Jane's workflow here, bring that back here. It's always easier to see both when we're looking at it here. Get back to that workflow and get back to that workflow. These items right here. This one's assigned to myself. This one's actually assigned to a team. Again, this one's assigned to myself. If I want to receive an email notification telling me when a workflow task has been assigned to me, when it has been updated, or when it has been completed, and again, if I have it assigned, this is what it's talking about with an attendee, this is where these 3 items are going to be clicked to yes. When you're starting out with workflows, I generally will say have these set to yes. And that's really just because you're not quite used to it yet. You're dipping your toes into the water and you're not fully dunked in. So initially, I would encourage having these set to yes. I know it'll feel a little overwhelming if you get a lot of emails throughout the day anyways. These will, again, send a physical email notification, but it at least lets you know that, hey, I've got something to do. As you get more comfortable, then this is, again, going to be a user preference. So if you're sitting there going, no, I'm really good at looking at my workflow tasks, I don't need an email notification, you can always come in here and set it to no. Now, keep in mind, this is, again, user specific. So if there are 12 of you in a database and 6 of you want it on and 6 of you don't, guess what? Each of you get your own opinion here. So again, you can have it as yes if you want it, no if you do not. There are 3 more though, and this actually has to deal with the owner. Now, owner, I kind of look at this as the person or team that needs to kind of be in the know. They don't necessarily always have tasks within the workflow, but they want to know what's actually happening. That's where owner usually makes sense. You can have workflow email notifications for owner as well. So again, if I had none of these tasks assigned to me, but I wanted to know that they were out there, then if I made myself an owner or I was part of that team, which I am the owner in this one, if I had these set to yes, I would actually be getting, again, email notifications when it's assigned, updated, or completed. So again, just a reminder here, this is user specific. You can change these at any point in time. just come up to your name and come to preferences. Now, besides that, again, coming back to that reporting, how do I report off of workflows? Do I have to go in contact by contact, or is this the only spot I can see every single workflow that's out there? Technically, no. So if I come to reports on the left-hand navigation, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. You're going to see workflow reports. You'll have two options here. The first one, workflow report. When I click on here, by default, it's going to again give me everything that's open. But what I have over here, far right-hand side, I have a filter option. I can choose to filter this by a specific date range. I can filter it by a name. I could filter it by a specific template. So if I wanted to know every single client review when I had open, let's say over the last, I'm going to go year to date type of thing. I'll just actually do March 1st to March 1st. Now we went through a little overhaul. We changed a couple things since last year. So I have both of those templates set up. If I don't want to limit it to anything else besides just what strictly is still open, I can apply that filter and have actually got none of them open. So that's the good news here. But again, this can give you specifically what you're looking for in that date range. I could even go further. How many do I have open? I'll go a little extreme here. I'll go out to June. There we go. I get a couple more this way. So really make sure you have those parameters set up the way you want them, what you're truly looking for. The other thing to also point out is if it's more so for like a staff meeting, you want to know everything that's still open, but also what has been finished maybe within a month time period or 2 months or quarter. Just come down to the bottom, you have the option of open and completed. So again, if you just want to know, hey, we've done 10 that we've finished, we have 2 outstanding, we're doing great. Or hey, we've got 50 open and they're all past due. Again, this might be a good way to really check in and make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. So again, this is going to show you every workflow, high level still, not going to show you individual items, but it'll show you everything that is currently open, who it's attached to, and again, when those are really supposed to be done by. Now, the other one, if I again come back to reports on the left, again, scroll to the very, very bottom, workflow task report on the right-hand side this time. This one is actually probably my favorite of the two, not to pick favorites, but the reason I like this one a little bit better is because I actually can do it by a specific user. So this could be, again, kind of a multifaceted reason. If I'm sitting here going, nope, I know for a fact Jack's going to be out for a couple of weeks. He told me he had surgery. I know he's not going to be here. I can limit that to just Jack to see every single thing that he has open to make sure that I actually reassign them. So that way I'm not sitting here and let's say months go by going, why did we never do this? Well, it was assigned to Jack when he was out. So again, this will actually help you kind of just show, hey, what is it that I need to actually have on my radar to update? Now, keep in mind, you could also do this by templates. You can limit this by what you name it. So if you give, kind of special names. But the other reason I actually like to kind of do this by user specifically is sometimes we might feel like we're overwhelming certain employees in our office. And we start to wonder, okay, why is it they're not doing it? And then we realize they've got 50 things to everyone else's 3. So this could, again, be a way to really just reevaluate, are these processes working effectively for our office, or do we need to double check that? So again, this is going to be more useful to really see. I'd even argue for like even just one-on-one type check-ins. Hey, you're doing really great. Here's what we're doing. And if again, you see like 500 here, that might be a good talking point to say, what can we do to help? What's the holdup? So this one, again, a little bit more detailed, a little bit more specific because you have that user or team option. Whereas the workflow report is going to be, again, more high level overview. Both of them, though, they're there for you to use. Both of them will have the option to export it to an Excel, both will PDF, and both will have technically the search function. So if you do happen to want to print that out for any reason or want that in Excel, you can use both of those buttons as well. So I know that was a lot to take in. I know we've done quite a few in here, but ultimately in actually a short about 45 minutes, we answered all of these questions. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and have a great rest of your week. We'll hope to see you next time.
thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.